This is really silly, but you want to know what I think when I think of the title? Obliteration, no sleeping, don't give a heck if you care if I'm breathing.
Nice.
I know that's not the right word, but it's suffocation, right?
Yeah.
Obliteration is the same.
Obliteration, no breathing.
Which you wouldn't breathe if you were obliterated, just like suffocated. So
That's true.
different reason, but hey.
Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And this week we're discussing chapter 6. Almost said 5.
I did catch that, yeah.
Obliteration. And the epigraph is an excerpt from Winfroda's My Adventures as a World Traveler. And it is of this traveler's time in Bingtown, talking about the defenses and magics of Bingtown.
Yes, during the most recent war happening between Chalced and Bingtown.
Yes.
And how Chalced, everybody knew Chalced could have won, but only if they could have kept the bay blockaded.
Yep. Which is true.
Yes, that was something that the people were very worried about.
Mm-hmm. However, two magics hampered them in this regard, and magic it most certainly was, despite any who would dispute it. For the Bingtown traders are merchants and not fighters, as all know. The first magic was that the Bingtown traders possess live ships, trading vessels that, by some arcane practice involving the sacrifice of 3 children or elderly family members, are brought to sentient life. And then talks about like the prodigious strength that they have, and they can smash, ships.
Yes, they can also spit fire for a distance equal to 3 of their vessels' length, but only some of them, not all.
Yes, some of them are able to spit fire. So that's the first magic. Very interesting. Again, like a twisting of words across distances and time and not understanding. And there's the face value of this where, like, yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. It's not a sacrifice of 3 children or elderly family members.
Right.
Can kind of seem like that from the outside looking in.
It does seem as though those are the 2 types of people that do end up getting put into live ships.
True.
So,
however, the word sacrifice implies a lot more than what actually happens.
Yes.
And the other thing is that the live ships can spit fire. And spit fire is the specific term. It's not breathe fire.
Yes.
So they are mixing up the live ships with the serpents is what I assume.
Interesting. I was also wondering if maybe the mix-up is about Tintaglia as well, because she
could be.
Also, it's not fire, it's like acid.
Basically, but like airborne acid. It's like where she breathes, it dissolves everything.
Yeah. Which is distinctly different from the acid that the serpents spit.
Yes.
But yes, you're right. Serpents more spit that rather than breathe acid.
And they were in the water. That's why I kind of assumed that would be mixed up a little bit.
That's fair.
But again, I don't think the serpents helped much with the blockade. So you could be right. Right with Tintaglia more so.
Right. But it's also odd. I don't think live ships necessarily have super strength. I mean, what's her name? Ophelia did smash a ship, but I don't think it's like...
So did Paragon. That's why he burned his hands, because he like literally battered a ship to splinters that was burning.
Yes, but I don't think either of them defeated ships that were of equal size to themselves. I think they both... And the Ophelia was the one with burnt hands.
Yeah, that's right. Ophelia was. But Paragon also like got a hold of ships and smashed them.
Yes, but he more like crushed bits of them. He wasn't like throwing them around. And so
that's still very strong.
I guess, but I'm thinking proportional to the object. It's not like they have super strength. They just have strength proportional to the size of them, which I think is how strength usually works for the most part.
Yeah.
But I guess other ships don't have strength at all in that way. They don't have arms to grab, at least.
Right. The other thing about the serpents possibly being the ones spitting fire or mixing up with the live ships is I think when the big tangle came in and was led by Tintaglia flying back and forth, they did fight some Chalcidians once in a while. We're told about it in maybe like a paragraph, and then they lost serpents along the way to those battles.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe some of those tales also got mixed up in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the second magic that Winfroda talks about here is as likely to be disputed by the ignorant as the first. But as this traveler witnessed it, I defy those who call this a lie. A dragon, cunningly crafted of blue and silver gemstones and activated by a marvelous combination of magic and ... passage obscured by damaged parchment, was hastily created by the Bingtown artisans for the defense of their harbor. This creature, named Tinitgliat by her creators, rose from the smoking wreckage that the Chalcidians had made of the Bingtown warehouse district and drove the enemy vessels from the harbor. So again, a little bit of skewing of what actually happened because there's a view of the outsider who is not a part of those central conversations and maybe even heard some of these stories secondhand.
Right. It does beg the question of, number one, was she even there? Would she have been there? And number two,
could have like taken refuge in the three ships areas, right? And never been involved in the old trader business.
I guess, but it just like seems like she's a traveling person. Like she's writing about her travels worldwide. So
right.
What made her decide to travel to Bingtown?
It's a major hub,
Yeah, but I feel like the era when this is happening, war is brewing, pretty widely known. So how'd she get in before the war happened? I mean, not that it's impossible, but I'm just thinking about is Bingtown really, even like a year before the war breaks out, a place people are still going to when things are so bad? Although we're only getting them seen as so bad from the Vestrits and other trader people who are seeing the ugliness that slavery is bringing in. That doesn't necessarily mean it would deter others from visiting.
Yeah, I don't think it was, as a whole, economically bad in Bingtown. A lot of money was flowing through there. It was just with the slave trade that a lot of people did not agree with. And the old ways of doing things was not as profitable.
Right.
So there was still a lot of money there, I think, but not from our perspective of good money, I guess.
Yes, but it is really interesting that she thinks that the dragon was created.
Yes.
Well, this is something that the artisans crafted, which I think speaks to, number one, the fact that Bingtown is known for their artisan goods that are otherworldly and magical, right? Like they have the elderling goods that they sell, but also just sort of a vast misunderstanding of the creature. It's odd because they don't think the stone dragons, like people who talk about the stone dragons in the duchies, don't call them stone dragons. They think they're real dragons, right?
Yeah.
So why would this person then claim this isn't a real dragon, it was created, when we know that the created ones aren't being accused of being created, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I don't know. Because maybe the Bingtown people are known for being... I don't know, but people also doubt that dragons existed in the Six Duchies, right? We heard that in the Live Ship Trader trilogy, that they're like, yeah, but some old sailor is like, no, I wouldn't believe it either, but I saw it with my own eyes, kind of thing.
That's fair.
I don't know, but they get the name fairly close.
Yeah, it does speak to, because we've talked about this a little bit before, there being an accent and not understanding an accent. So True. It sort of implies to me that Winfroda is not from the area, and so maybe she just misheard the name.
Tinitgliat.
Yeah, because it was a different accent saying it.
Yeah.
Who knows? Or maybe it once again points to secondhand knowledge. She wasn't actually there. She's just trying to make a profit on her book. Get your bag, girl.
We start this with Fitz heading back from his meeting with Kettrikin, going back through the hallways into his room in Lord Golden's rooms.
But he doesn't call it his room. He calls it his cell.
Right. But again, that's not... I think Robin Hobb has used that term not just for prison.
Okay.
Just like a small cavern box thing, you know,
Yeah.
that you stay in.
But I just thought it was really interesting that it has been his room up until this point, and now he's referring to it as a cell, which I think does speak to his idea that he is now being trapped with the Farseers and into the assassin role again, and it really like plays to the undercurrents of his own feelings about his place in Buckkeep currently.
He does not exit his room, however, his cell, because he overhears Lord Golden speaking with somebody and wants to wait. And it's about him specifically. It's about Tom Badgerlock not being there and being a bad servant in general, that he can't get. He thought it was a great idea at first to have this, rough and tumble bodyguard who could be also his valet, and he can't even do anything properly. So Fitz is waiting in his room listening to this, and then he hears Laurel talk back. So he's like, oh, okay, so it's Laurel here, but I still can't come out of my room because that would be very weird if Lord Golden is saying I'm not here.
Right. Wouldn't be the best look.
Exactly. And she says, very well, may I leave a message for your man then, Lord Golden? The voice was Laurel's, and the irritation level in it was unmasked. She had seen too much of us when she had accompanied us on our journey to be deceived by our charade. She would never again believe us to be merely master and man. We had bungled our roles too often. Yet I also understood why Lord Golden insisted on resuming the masquerade. To do otherwise would have eventually completely unraveled our deception of the court. Certainly, or you would be welcome to return this evening, if you wish to take the chance that he may have recalled his duties and wandered home.
I do want to just stop for a second to talk about that line there that Laurel's irritated and Fitz is like, well, obviously
it makes sense that she's irritated.
But it's so great that Lord Golden decided to keep up the facade so that we don't unravel in front of the court, which is really interesting because it kind of puts the onus on Lord Golden for deciding to do this.
Well, he insisted on, reinforcing that role here. Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like it was a mutually agreed upon thing.
Yeah. I think the emphasis on this is in this conversation specifically, not just they both decided that, yes, they have to stick to the role, but Lord Golden insisting on Laurel conforming to that role as well is like, hey, we're at court.
Yeah. Okay.
That's how I read that, at least.
That's
that
fair.
It wasn't just Lord Golden being like, hey, yeah, we're serving man and noble.
Yeah.
And Fitz going along with it. It was, I think, just in this conversation. It's also a reminder to Laurel.
Right. Well, Laurel doesn't ever get over it. And even later when she talks with Fitz, she's still sort of frustrated. But I just wanted to also touch on that because as someone who understands the court and court life and knows that the queen trusts these people and obviously there's more to them than she understands, I don't understand then why she wouldn't get that this is clearly a secret mission and they need to keep a cover of some kind. Like, why is she mad at them for playing a part in an open hallway where anyone can walk by? You know what I mean?
I mean, also, Fitz kind of thinks later on when he does speak with Laurel, we'll get there, but it's important to bring up now, I guess, that he also thinks she's miffed about Lord Golden not being as familiar with her anymore.
Okay.
Because they used to chat the whole time, basically, because Fitz was in his own head. Tom Badgerlock was in his own head and taciturn. But now Lord Golden's treating her just like a random person.
I guess. I don't know. It just feels like she holds a position in which she should be able to read the situation a little bit better as like, clearly there is something afoot that I don't know about that is above my pay grade that I just need to be chill about. But I guess I'd also be upset if people that I knew were sort of putting me at arm's length.
Also, her message is important, as
Yes.
she says later on. But she's very annoyed at this, and she says, "A message will suffice, I am sure. In passing through the stable, I noticed something about his horse that made me concerned for her. If he will meet me there at noon today, I will point it out to him." And so Lord Golden's just being like, "I detest being the middleman here."
Yeah, I hate being the secretary to my own man.
Exactly. And she reaffirms to Lord Golden, saying, "My concern is a grave one. See that he meets me then, or arranges to speak to me about my concern. Good day." She shut the door very firmly behind herself. I heard the thump, but even so I waited some minutes to be completely certain that the fool was alone. I eased open the door silently, but the fool's preternatural awareness served him well. "There you are," he exclaimed with a sigh of relief as I entered. "I was beginning to worry about you." Then he looked more closely at me, and a smile lit up his face. "The prince's first lesson must have gone very well."
Before we get into why that's not possible, why does Fitz what is the phrasing here? Maybe I'm misinterpreting, but the fool's preternatural awareness served him well implies to me that he knew Fitz was there the whole time, or like he's aware that Fitz was there before Fitz makes himself known. But then his first words are, "There you are," as though he just sees him for the first time, unless I'm just misreading this.
I am imagining the fool, because Fitz is waiting some minutes after Laurel leaves. It's completely quiet. The
Mhm.
fool is doing something, not looking at Fitz's door, obviously, because he doesn't know Fitz is there.
Right.
And Fitz is silently trying to sneak out, just to kind of scope out the room to make sure that the fool is alone. And the fool turns around and be like, "Ah, there you are."
Okay. So like he just doesn't jump.
Yeah. And he's
Sure.
aware of the door opening. That's the preternatural awareness. He's like, okay.
Because I was also thinking they have a link that Beloved is very aware of. Like he says in later books, specifically the last trilogy, that he could feel Fitz. Oh no, they get rid of the
Yeah, he takes the skill link away at the end of this trilogy, I think.
but then he can feel Fitz whenever Fitz touches the block
Oh, the
of
carving.
the three. Yeah, the carving.
We'll
Okay.
talk about it
Yeah.
in the end of this trilogy, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but my point was being that they have a link and it's proven that Beloved is well aware of this link in a way that Fitz seems to overlook.
We have to remember that that link is going to be a lot more strengthened in repeated use, and that comes up later in this trilogy yet.
Okay.
They do a lot more healing together, because the fool is a part of that coterie that helps heal Fitz at one point. I don't remember if it's in this one or the next.
I didn't think he was part of it. I thought he just saw him after.
No, because he has a skill link to like all of them, because of his link to Fitz. And then also Fitz heals and brings the fool back to life.
Right.
So those things definitely strengthen their bond. Right now it is there, but more tenuous still, I think.
Okay.
At least that's how I read it.
Well, anyway, I was thinking maybe that was why he wasn't surprised to see Fitz there. So
Could be. Yeah.
maybe not.
So the fool sees something in Fitz's face that makes him smile and asks if the prince's lesson went well. And of course, Fitz has to say, no, the prince didn't show up. And then Fitz also apologizes for not arranging Lord Golden's breakfast, which the fool is then like, "I didn't expect you to."
Yeah, you literally never do. So
yeah. He poured himself another cup of tea, sipped it, and made a face. Cold. He gestured at the remains of the repast. "Hungry?" "No. I ate with Ketrican." He nodded, unsurprised. "The prince sent me a message this morning. It now makes sense to me. He wrote, 'I was saddened to see that your injury prevented you from joining in the dancing at my betrothal festivities. Well do I know how frustrating it is when an unexpected inconvenience denies you a pleasure long anticipated. I heartily hope that you are soon able to resume your favorite activities.' I nodded, somewhat pleased. Subtle, yet it conveys it. Our prince is becoming more sophisticated." "He has his father's wit," he agreed, but when I glanced at him sharply, his expression was mild and benign. He continued, "You have another message as well, from Laurel."
Why do you think Fitz reacted to that? Because he knows he's the father and he knows that Beloved knows as well?
Yeah, he's also sensitive after the talk with Kettrikin.
That's fair. But also, this implies, and okay, maybe this is my bad. I don't remember why Dutiful couldn't come to the tower.
I don't remember either. He might explain it in the next chapter or
Yeah,
two.
but I was just wondering if he actually had a good reason or if it was like, I couldn't possibly make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't remember. So Fitz and Lord Golden briefly talk about how that message from Laurel puzzles and alarms them because it's obviously not about the horse. But Fitz also wants to go down to Buckkeep Town anyways, so is asking to be excused from the afternoon to see what Laurel wants to say and then go down and speak to Jinna and Hap. Because he explains to Lord Golden, "I had said I would come by last night to talk to Hap. As you know, I went to the betrothal festivities with you instead." He picked up a tiny nosegay of white flowers from his breakfast tray and sniffed it thoughtfully. "So many people, all wanting a bit of your time." I sighed. "It is hard for me. I don't quite know how to manage it. I've grown used to my solitary life, with only Night Eyes and Hap making claims on me. I don't think I'm handling this very well. I can't imagine how Che juggled all these tasks for so many years. He's a spider, a web weaver with lines stringing out in all directions. He sits at the center and interprets each tug." I smiled with him. Accurate, not flattering, but accurate. So there's couple little details in there. One, Lord Golden picks up some white nosegays from his breakfast tray.
Once again,
He has some more flowers. So now he's getting maybe a little bit of a hint that, oh, okay, Fitz did not give me flowers the first time.
yes.
And is a little bit sad about Fitz wanting to go down to see Jinna, and makes that statement, "So many people all wanting a bit of your time." So it's interesting. Get a little bit of a peek in between the lines of Beloved's feelings here.
Right. Well, and also Fitz hasn't been spending a ton of time with Beloved
Yeah,
and isn't really trying to. Although it's not that their roles necessarily give them the time to be able to spend together,
right.
but they could be spending more time together if they wanted to. So I'm sure that Beloved is sort of feeling that here.
Mm-hmm. He cocked his head at me suddenly. "It was Kettrikin, then, wasn't it? Not Shade." "I don't understand." He looked down at his hands, twiddling the little bouquet. "There's a change in you. Your shoulders are squared again. Your eyes focus on me when I talk to you. I don't feel as if I should glance over my shoulder to see if a ghost is there." He set the flowers down carefully on the table. "Someone has lifted a part of your burden." "Kettrikin," I agreed with him after a moment. I cleared my throat. "She was closer to Night Eyes than I realized. She mourns him, too. As do I." I thought about my next words before I said them. I wondered if they were necessary, feared that they might hurt him, but I spoke them. "In a different way. Kettrikin mourns Night Eyes as I do, for himself, and for what he was to her. You—" I faltered, unsure how to put it. "I loved him through you. Our link was how he became real to me. So in a sense, I do not mourn Night Eyes as you do. I grieve for your grief." "You have always been better with words than I am." "Yes," he agreed. Then he sighed and crossed his arms on his chest. "Well, I am glad that someone could help you, even as I envy Kettrikin." And Fitz is a little bit confused by that, and Beloved answers, "I envy her that she could comfort you." And then before I could even think of any reply, he added briskly, "I'll leave it to you to clear the dishes away to the kitchen. Take care to be a bit surly, act, as if you've been chastened. I've let it known that I don't want any visitors today. I'm planning to take some time to myself."
And with that, I guess he then asks if Fitz will be back in time for dinner to help him limp to dinner. And Fitz says, I expect so, and his spirits seemed suddenly dampened, as if he were truly in pain. He nodded gravely. Perhaps I will see you then. He rose from the table and went to his private room. Without another word, he opened the door. He shut it quietly but firmly behind him. So, I think this is a really good look into the feelings that Beloved has for Fitz. This is perhaps the most obvious that he has been overall. The Beloved moment is definitely very clearly feelings.
But even like on first time, looking back, it is.
Yes.
But first time read, it is sharing a culture moment. Like he backs it by saying like, this is what we do. But also it's with Fitz being a little bit drunk and being like, oh, you're so silly and want to make me blush all the time. Because that's what the fool does. So first time through, you don't necessarily have to read it that way. You
can kind of push it aside as like, okay, what a weird moment.
But this one, he's really sad that he, one, couldn't help Fitz in his grief, which is fine. But two, really sad that he's not spending time with Fitz.
Yeah. Which I will say is a little bit humorous because Fitz gets the same way. Yeah, like he also gets sulky when he doesn't get enough time with his friend. Yeah. So it's a little bit funny to see the other end of it and to have Fitz be so oblivious to what's going on there. But it is sort of a big moment of, oh, maybe there's something else under this current if you're paying close enough attention as a first-time reader. But definitely as a rereader, you know that this is a good sign. So Fitz then decides that he better get to cleaning, as he's been dismissed clearly. And he takes his time, sort of, just, actually cleaning the way he should and straightening things, getting the water changed, dusting, because Lord Golden had made a comment about how dusty it was to Laurel. And all the while sort of watching the door, and Beloved never comes out during this time. And then Fitz has to leave because it's now getting close to noon.
Yeah, he thinks about tapping on the door, but decides against it, wondering if the fool were ill. But heads out to the stables anyways. And it is the old stables where his horse is stabled right now, which was the ones that he grew up in.
And he's kind of happy that the horse is there, not just because he likes those stables, but also because he feels like it'll give him less of a chance to run into hands.
Yeah.
If he goes to the older stables.
So he finds Laurel leaning against the gate of My Black Stall, talking softly to her. And now he's, second guessing like, oh, maybe she is worried about my horse for some reason. And so he introduces himself as there by asking what's wrong with my horse. And then belatedly, like, oh yeah, good morning. Good afternoon, Laurel. Badgerlock, good day. Thank you for meeting me here. She glanced about casually, and finding our corner of the stable deserted, she still leaned closer and whispered to me, I need a word with you, in private. Follow me. As you wish, mistress. She strode off, and I followed at her heels. So she is leading them to his shack towards the old room where Burek stayed before. It was Burek's loft. Now it's just a storeroom. But Fitz is like, oh my gosh, did she find out about me? And he's like kind of combating all of these feelings that it's bringing up. And he's kind of cautious about this, obviously, because it's something that's quite personal from his youth.
Yeah, where he was raised for a large portion of his life. Yeah. And he does talk a little bit about that time and how Burek had always said that he just wanted to be closer to the horses, and that's why he lived there. But thinking back now as an adult on it, it's very clear that he was there more to keep Fitz out of the limelight as much as possible, is how Fitz is interpreting it. We don't know that is necessarily true. It seems likely. Yeah. But this is just Fitz's musings on the matter. Mm-hmm. But he is sort of wondering if this is a corner situation. He doesn't fully trust Laurel because of the whole Piebalds situation from last book, and thinking of how close she was with Deerkin.
Right.
And also her seeming disdain for old blood at the same time. So I think there's a little bit of distrust there anyway. And especially since his guard is up after being threatened a few chapters ago, he is just waiting for her to be like, this is your room. I know it is, when they get up there. And he's saddened when he gets up there because it is sort of overcrowded with junk. And it's all stuff that somebody thinks will probably be useful later.
Dusty cobwebs, that sort of thing.
And it does bring him dismay because he knows Bjork would hate to see it. And he almost wants to talk to Hans and then realizes that the current stables are so much bigger than they were during Bjork's time. So Hans probably doesn't even know that this stuff is there.
And doubts that Hans sat up at night greasing and mending old harness anymore. So, like, the leader of the stables has a more expanded job now.
Yes.
Laurel misinterpreted the look on my face. I know, it smells up here, but it's private. I would have seen you in your own room, but Lord Golden was too busy playing the Grand Noble. He is a Grand Noble, I pointed out, but the flashing look she gave me stilled my tongue. Belatedly, it came to me that Lord Golden had bestowed much attention on Laurel during our journey, yet not a word had they exchanged last night. Oh. Be that as it may, or be you whom you may, she dismissed her annoyance with us, obviously intent on graver matters. I received a message from my cousin. Dearkin didn't intend the warning for you, he intended it for me. I doubt that he would approve my passing it on to you, for he has ample reasons not to be fond of you. The Queen, however, seems to hold you in some regard, and it is the Queen I am sworn to. As we both are, I assured her. Have you shared these tidings with her as well? She looked at me. Not yet, she admitted. It may be that there is no need to, that this is a matter you can handle yourself, and it is not as easy for me to manage a quiet moment with the Queen as it is for me to summon you. And now Fitz wants to know the warning.
Yes. I do want to ask, why does Fitz see any meaning behind Laurel and Lord Golden not having spoken at the banquet? Like, Lord Golden was confined to his chair for most of the night. Laurel would have had to come to him. So is it like...
But Lord Golden was sending Fitz with letters
That's true.
to invite people over. And she was not invited into his circle, so she could not wander over to a noble because she's just a huntswoman, right?
Okay, sure.
So them becoming friendly, or even in her eyes, maybe friends, and in Fitz's eyes, maybe more.
Right.
For her not to be invited over is like, oh, so he doesn't care about me at all. Great.
Fair.
Cool.
Okay.
It was just fake.
Sure. Interesting. Well, either way, that's not necessarily the topic that
Right.
they're on. So it is sort of just passed over by Fitz. And this message that Laurel has to share is that her cousin told her to flee.
The Piebalds know who I am and where I live. I am twice a traitor to their way of thinking, for by my family connection they consider me old blood, and I serve the hated Farseer regime. They will kill me if they can. Her voice betrayed no emotion as she recounted the threat to herself, but she lowered her tone and looked aside from me as she added, and the same is true of you.
I think the wording here is really interesting, calling it the Farseer regime. Because, I mean, and maybe this is naive of me, but I feel like regime has more negative context than the Farseer,
Reign.
Yeah, the reign or line or whatever, nobility.
It does, and I think when she talks more later on that she's kind of quoting the letter directly.
Yes.
So I think this is verbiage or words from Dearkin, who we also find out is treading a line of being like, hey, I'm still on the piebald side, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Uh-huh.
So definitely still in that world and using those terms.
Yeah. But no, I thought that was, it's really interesting. I'm picking it up more this chapter, but it happens every chapter. I just don't think I dive into it as much. But this chapter especially, there's a lot of word choices being used that really stick out to me. And
yeah,
I feel like regime especially, it's very much like not something the people chose is the vibe I get. And this is interesting too, because it talks a little bit about the belief of the Piebalds and how, or why I guess they would care about Laurel, because she isn't witted,
right.
but she is old blood through family. So she should be treated as though, or she should treat old blood as coming first, I guess.
But she chose to work for the Farseers and therefore is a traitor.
Yeah.
But she warns Tom Badgerlock here, saying that Lodwine still languishes, recovering from your chopping off his arm. In the wake of our little adventure, many of his followers have abandoned him to return to the true Old Blood ways. Old Blood families have put pressure on their sons and daughters to forsake the Piebalds' extreme politics. Amongst many, there is a feeling that the Queen genuinely intends to better the lot of the Old Blood folk. As it has become known that her own son is witted, they have a kindlier feeling toward her. They are content to wait, for a short time at least, to see how she will treat us now. And those who remain amongst the Piebalds? I asked unwillingly, and Laurel goes on to say, pretty much confirming Fitz's fears, that those who remain are the most dangerous, the most extreme, the most willing to act.
The least reasonable.
And the least reasonable, yes. Some, like Lodwine, have seen family and friends put to death for the crime of being witted. Others have hearts that pump more madness than blood. They are not many, but as they place no limits on what they will do to attain their goals, they are as dangerous as a vast army. Their goals? Simple. Power for themselves, punishment for those who have oppressed the witted. They hate the Farseers, but even more, they hate you, and Lodwine feeds their hatred.
It's so intriguing that Fitz has caught the ire of these people. And I think it speaks to sort of, which is brought up in a little bit, but I'm going to bring it up early, the fact that they're working with the Pale Woman. I feel like potentially, this is kind of tinfoil hat, she's feeding into the delusion that Fitz needs to go because she knows he's a catalyst. And if he's there, she's not going to win.
It's also easy to feed into that because he's the one who upset their whole plan and literally physically harmed their leader and almost killed their leader.
Did kill one of the leaders.
Yeah.
And seriously maimed the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But it is funny because these are the same people who call themselves the fool, or the, what do they call them? They name themselves after Fitz, right?
Oh, the Cult of the Bastard?
Yes. They also have that moniker. So there's something a little bit humorous about them hating the person that they're using the name of.
It's funny. Laurel here says that they're holding up Fitz as an example of basically this is what's wrong with the Old Blood, the people who have defected to the Farseers. And so it is riling up anger, not against just Fitz anymore, but spreading out to other people who are working with the Farseers as well. The Farseer oppressors. Lodwine's Piebalds bring reprisals against the Old Blood who came to your aid against the Piebalds. Some homes have been burned. Flocks have been scattered or stolen. Those sort of attacks are already happening, but worse is threatened. The Piebalds say they will expose any who will not side with them against the Farseers. It thrills them that we should be killed by the folk we will not rise against. The Piebalds say that all Old Blood must either stand with them or be purged from the community. Her face had gone both grave and pale, so Fitz thinks again of her family.
Yeah. And this is really hard, right? What a situation to have to be put into,
right,
where you are between a rock and a hard place. Like, you can either be killed by the strangers who don't know anything about Old Blood ways and what it is, or you can be killed by people who do know the Old Blood ways and will expose you to people who will kill you for having the wit just because you don't want to do whatever they want to.
Right.
So both really bad and not really a great place to be. And so it isn't amazing for Laurel or Deerkin to be in the situation that they're in. And Fitz keeps doing this thing where he just kind of is silent and keep just being quiet and then lets Laurel continue to talk. Or he'll ask a clarifying question that prompts more to be explained. Mm-hmm. But he is sort of just like trying to get the whole picture here.
Yeah. And he explains to her briefly that it's not all news to him because the Piebalds stopped him on the road and threatened him. And she goes on to say, well, yeah, you're a special target for them. You struck Lodwine's hand from his arm. You are old blood serving the Farseers and directly opposing the Piebalds. Take no comfort that they have left you alive when they could have so easily killed you. It only means that they could have some use for you that requires you to be alive. My cousin hinted as much when he warned me, for he said that perhaps I had mixed myself with worse company than I thought. The piebald rumor is that Lord Golden and Tom Badgerlock were not what they seemed to be. Small surprise to me, that was, but Deerkin seemed to think it portentous.
This is really big because I think it points to sort of the spying that Thick has done for the group already.
Do you think, yes, do you think that it has been relayed that it's Fitz chivalry?
No.
Or is it just like he's speaking directly with Jade, the Queen's advisors in secret rooms kind of thing?
I think it's being relayed that he is in places he shouldn't be. They both are. And that they are, like, obviously they will know that Jade is not who he seems to be because he goes through the walls and has,
right,
like, his chemicals or whatever. But first, I don't know. On the one hand, though, it is kind of weird that Deerkin's like, how can this be? They know that Fitz and Lord Golden came to get the prince. Obviously, they're not who they say they are. That's not, I don't feel like that's that big of a leap. It's not like Lord Golden just happened to be where the prince was.
The way that it's written out makes it seem to the reader, at least it does to me, even though I can kind of say that it's not true, is that they know Lord Golden and Tom Badgerlock are Fitz and the Fool.
Yes.
But that can't be true.
Yes.
However, as I was reading this chapter, it's really interesting to me. And well, I'll talk about it a little bit further on when Fitz leaves this meeting and goes down to Buckkeep Town. But they do travel, like Lodwine does travel to Buckkeep. And he is there eventually. And I think that's because he heard Fitz chivalry. I don't remember the exact confrontation.
Okay.
Later on, but that's my rereader headcanon at the moment.
Okay.
But I don't think they know that yet.
Okay.
I don't think that warning from Deerkin was about that specifically.
Yeah. I think there probably is some talk about them not being who they seem.
Right.
But the exact identity, because as far
the Lord
as
Golden one confuses me.
Yes. But as far as we're aware, Jade has only talked about Fitz chivalry, called Fitz chivalry in front of Thick very recently.
Right. That's why I'm saying this warning couldn't be about that specifically.
Yeah. But maybe he has been there without Fitz realizing, because we know that he is very powerful in making himself not be seen.
Could be.
I don't know. Hard to tell for sure. I do feel like this is sort of one of those ominous warnings that's supposed to not really mean anything yet, but it can mean something if you're looking into it. And of course, to Fitz, it means something because he is hiding something.
Right. So Fitz thinks about that. Like, did they finally connect me to this? And he's thinking through these implications. But Laurel paused, kind of waiting for Tom Badgerlock to open up about who they really were. So she scowls at the continued silence.
Yes.
And then resumes her talk. Because that was a sticking point on their whole travel, too,
yes,
right?
Yes, is that they never told her.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out once again, why would they tell? Like, I get that
she's a straight shooter. She's a straight shooter. Come on.
She is, but also she has to understand how things work. And they are not, just because it feels safer to talk in this room does not mean that it is safe and that they can just talk willy-nilly. They're literally by a bunch of animals. This is not there are too many potential spies around.
Right.
Fitz can't just be open. And I feel like the fact that she continuously is upset that he won't just tell her the secret is frustrating to me, because I expect her to be smart enough to understand that this isn't really the time or moment and that he cannot tell her right now. Like, she works for the Queen as her secret advisor and goes on secret missions for the Queen. She should understand that sometimes, even if you like somebody, you can't tell them stuff.
Right.
So I think that's where I get frustrated with Laurel in this. I think she also has a bias because she seems a little bit miffed now that she knows that Fitz is old blood.
Yeah.
So I do kind of also get the vibe that part of the reason that she has a problem with not getting to know is because of her weird antagonism towards witted people. And maybe that's my own reading into this, but I do feel like part of it is like, what else are you hiding in a weird way?
Well, either way, she does continue her warning and her news about the Piebalds, basically saying that in the wake of their collapsed plot to capture the prince and the increased attacks and fanatics that are left with the Piebalds, these attacks are turning even people who used to be Piebalds against them because they're making these crazy attacks against other old blood. So it's a smaller, more extreme sect of the Piebalds that are left over, and they don't have a lot of support anymore.
Right.
But they still have power. They just don't have support.
Yeah. Well, and she does point out that
no one's restraining them either because
restraining
Lodwine
them.
is too weak to resume full leadership yet.
Yeah. And previously when they were attacking people, it was under the guise of like fighting for the greater good. And
Right.
now it's
Yeah.
very clearly just about settling old scores.
Yeah.
And so that also lessens their cause. It does, I will say, maybe this is just because, number one, this is fiction, and number two, I'm very petty. But I don't understand why Old Blood isn't like, okay, let's expose every single person we know to be a piebald right now. Then what? Beat them at their own game. There's less of them there than there are of you, and then everyone's safe. Greater good.
True.
All I'm saying... Stop being a piebald or else.
They are kind of scattered throughout the Six Counties. Remember, there's not really any settlements of them. So.
Yeah, but the second I get threatened by my like family friend that knows I'm old blood, I'm immediately going to the town square and being like, "This guy's witted." Like immediately threaten me, okay,
but
buddy.
You don't want
I don't
that
care.
to be you don't want that to be stirred up in the town because then they'll want more blood.
I'm going to their town because we live separately.
Okay.
I'm going to whatever town they live in, and I'm saying that guy's witted.
Okay.
That guy's witted, and I know it.
So this is where Laurel talks about Deerkin to Tom Badgerlock here, saying, "You understand that Deerkin still has ties to those in the Piebalds. They try to lure him back. He must pretend to side with them to protect our family. He walks a thin and dangerous line. He hears things that are very dangerous for him to repeat, and yet he has sent word." Her words trickled away. She stared at the obscured window as if she could truly see what was beyond it. I knew what she was trying to express. "You should speak to the queen. Tell her that Deerkin must appear a traitor to the crown for the sake of keeping your family safe. Will you flee as he bids you?" And she says, "No, I'm safer here." Basically, they have to reach into danger to get me here.
And it puts more danger onto her family if she goes to them because then she's with them and
Exactly.
it puts more of a target on their back.
I wondered if Chade would be able to protect her, let alone her cousin. Her voice was flat when she spoke again. "Deerkin hears hints that the Piebalds are forming an alliance with outsiders. Powerful folk who would be happy to destroy the Farseers and leave Lodwine's folk in power," as a quote. She gave me a worried glance. "That sounds like a silly boast, doesn't it? It couldn't be real, could it?" "Best tell the queen," I said, and hoped she could not hear that I did think it possible. Which is an interesting timeline thing because Deerkin was kind of close to the Piebalds before. He says he did not know about the plot, though.
Right.
So it's not definitive that they're gaining these alliances with Illustor and the Out Islanders now. It could have happened before now, and Deerkin is just hearing word. We just don't know.
I mean, Deerkin is young, and even though he was helping Lodwine, he wasn't part of the original party grabbing the prince. He is younger. I think it is talked about last book about how he was just recently recruited.
Yeah.
And so he hasn't been there that long. He's not very high up in the ranks. I think it's believable that he wouldn't know anything about it. And now that there are less people that are in the Piebald's cause, he's hearing more than he would have before.
Right.
feel like there's too much pointing to them already being in talks with Illustor.
At least in our minds, yes. The verb forming an alliance as it's presently happening is a little bit different, but again, it could just be pointing out, Deerkin doesn't know everything.
Right. And I do also want to talk about the fact that this is happening while the Out Islanders are here, and I'm wondering if Eliania's father is part of the people trying to make a deal with the Piebalds as well. This is my own personal theory. I don't remember.
Like besides Henja? Because Henja's the one.
Yes, Henja is the one, but I feel like he's just so boastful and awful that I could see him being like, hey, we'll help you guys take over here as long as you let us take what we want. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like he could also be trying to broker his own little deal. He seems arrogant enough to think he could, but that's just my own personal feelings on it. I don't think that necessarily is the 100% truth or even backed up by anything in text. That's my own feelings.
Yeah. It is something that we kind of need to hold in your head though, because we've talked about, especially last book, that we still like Illustor's hand is probably in the, hey, let's grab the prince, because why would you grab specifically the prince?
Yes.
However, when would they have contact with her besides when Henja comes to here during this trip? That's the thing.
So, yes, Henja is a direct connection to Illustor.
Unless Illustor used Keppel Rawbread to skill suggestions and alter their mind.
I mean, that's definitely a possibility. But I'm thinking it can be as simple as sending a messenger anyway. Like it doesn't have to be Henja that interacts with them first.
True.
And I mean, obviously you got to butter them up, but you have to think also about the fact that Out Islanders are becoming more common in visiting the duchies. And especially, I feel like, I don't know if it's touched on at all, but in the first trilogy, it's talked about how even in times of peace, the Out Islanders will raid parts of Buck.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's just a thing that they do.
Yeah. They just usually don't go too far.
And they don't do it in an organized way.
No.
It's one clan. This is obviously an organized army, red ships, multiple clans.
And so I'm thinking like sometimes they have to land in places that are more wilderness and less city. And then if you happen to be able to see the future, for instance, you could land in the exact right spot to meet the exact right people to get the ear of the Piebalds. And you can send your messengers who are loyal to your cause because you have their family hostage out to do your bidding. So I feel like and it wouldn't be out of place that there are Out Islanders visiting these coastlines, these places,
Yeah, that's fair.
So that's my thoughts on it. So then Laurel gets into what, in my opinion, is the most interesting part of this whole conversation, which is where she tells Fitz that she thinks he should flee.
Yeah. Asks him first, will you flee? However, then says, I think you should.
For you would make a fine example of the Piebald's power. Exposed, you would illustrate that there are witted even in the walls of Buckkeep. Quartered and burned, you would be a fine example to other traitors, to the old blood, that those who deny and betray their own kind are in turn betrayed by them. She was not herself witted. Her cousin was. Even though the magic ran in her family blood, she had no love for the wit or those who used their magic. Like most Six Duchies folk, she regarded my ability to sense animals and bond with a beast as a despicable magic. Perhaps her use of the word traitor should have carried less sting because of that. Yet the contempt of the message burned me. I am not a traitor to my old blood. I but keep my oath where it was sworn, to the Farseers. If old blood had not tried to harm the prince, it would not have been necessary for me to wrest him back from them. And so I think this is really important, and I think it's really an interesting picture that is being painted here, because Laurel is describing something that Fitz has already went through. She is saying, like, and wouldn't that be a great example for you to be burned and cut up and chopped and proven that even with the Farseers, witted people can be there. He's literally a Farseer, and he was already accused and found guilty of being witted and killed for it. So it's just really interesting that she is talking about that. But I fear that that's not a good enough message, right? Like, I mean, I guess maybe to regular people who hate the wit, it could upset them that there was somebody so close to the Farseer, but at the end of the day, he was just a servant of a noble who's not even from this place. I don't think it's that big of a gotcha for the Farseers, and I don't feel like it's a good enough message for what the Piebalds want. It's not going to upset enough. And they're already killing other witted people, so I don't think it's any more of a message than what they're already giving of, like, be on our side or die. So it's just really odd to me that she's treating this as you need to leave so that you don't hurt the queen and the Farseers. And
well, the queen isn't brought into it until later on, as she continues on saying, like, those are the words of my cousin. I'm not calling you a Farseer. He's the one who sent me this warning to warn the queen, partly because he feels a debt to me, but also because she is the most tolerant of old blood of any recent Farseer reign we have known. He would not see her shamed and her influence lessened. I suspect he thinks she would rid herself of you if she knew you could be used against her. I know her better. She will not heed my warning and send you away from Buckkeep before you can be used against her. So, that was her real message for me. Then you think that would be best for all if I simply removed myself without her having to ask me to leave. So that's where it comes in more so, right? Laurel is feeling protective of Kettricken. She knows Kettricken is never going to send away somebody.
Right.
Just because, they might be a danger. She's like, no, I'm going to protect the person that's close to me because that's who Kettricken is.
Right.
And Laurel's like, it would be better if the problem removed itself so Kettricken didn't have to make the risk to herself or her reign.
Right.
So that's where Laurel's coming from, of like, I'll give you the reasons, but obviously I'm here to protect Kettricken, so you should remove yourself to stop being a risk to the Farseers, which is what Fitz thought of immediately when he got approached by the Piebalds.
Yes, absolutely. But I think it is really interesting that her first knee-jerk reaction is he just needs to remove himself and this will all get better. Like, this is clearly a very complicated issue that Fitz just not being around isn't going to fix. And I get that she doesn't know who he is or his significance and why it's not so simple as just him disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I would think, once again, because of her position, she would also understand that there are flaws to the logic of the Piebalds using Fitz as a scapegoat. And there are other ways to think about this. And because she doesn't know everything, but maybe I'm just expecting shade levels from a regular human being. Like, because I don't know. She is an advisor of some sort. She is in on some secrets. Not all of them, clearly, but like, you would think that would mean that she could think.
I don't know if she's
more.
Even considered an advisor. I think
she's just the huntswoman.
Yeah, I think she's just the huntswoman who has Kettricken's trust, and so was sent along as like, hey, I trust you. I'm going to let you in on this secret. You need to help out with this mission.
Am I wrong in thinking that the huntswoman is like the title of the head of the guard for the queen?
I don't think that's true, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think
there was
Laurel's
something in the first trilogy.
I don't think Laurel's a fighter.
Okay. She literally is just a hunter.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, so maybe I'm just like misunderstanding what her role is in the castle because she was also sent on a secret mission to retrieve the sun.
I think she's friendly with Kettricken. I don't think she would personally call Kettricken her friend, but I think Kettricken would call Laurel her friend. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I don't. So, okay, maybe I'm being a little surprised, me being harsh on a character. Maybe I'm being a little harsh on her, but it just also...
I don't think it's you being harsh. I think it's you having higher expectations.
Yeah. I do have high expectations for a lot of these characters, to be fair. But I guess if that's the case, she does give it up easily. I will give her that credit. It's not like she's here to bully Fitz into leaving.
Right.
And she is trying to do what she thinks is best. She is trying to say, hey, this might be helpful. But when Fitz pushes back and says, listen,
Queen called me here.
Yeah, I didn't come here of my own accord. I was ordered here by the Farseers. So I can't just leave.
And she's like, I thought you'd say that. That's fine.
Yeah, okay, valid. I was just hoping this would be an easy problem, which, okay, who amongst us hasn't been at work and been like, hey, this is the easiest path.
Yeah, she says she'll still warn the queen, and Fitz is like, yeah, good, you better do that. Yet I thank you for taking the time to seek me out and warn me as well. I know I gave Deerkin little reason to think well of me. I am willing to let all that occurred between us fade into the past. Yeah, it's easy for you to say, Fitz.
Yeah, I'm willing to forget that I almost killed that guy, but...
If you have the chance, I ask you to pass that message on to him, that I bear no ill will to him or to any that follow the true old blood ways. But I must always put my service to the Farseers first. As do I, she responded grimly.
I do want to quick talk about this part of the interaction because I'm wondering if the hostility that Fitz is reading from Laurel since this incident is stemming more so from her shock at how he almost killed her cousin and like how ruthless he got.
Could be.
And just sort of a personal, like, I can't believe you almost killed my cousin.
Could be, yeah.
Or, I don't know. Or if it's genuinely something that she's, like, having trouble with.
Yeah. Well, Fitz kind of wraps this up asking about Lodwine's intentions towards Prince Dutiful, and Laurel's like, Deerkin didn't mention anything about that, so I have no idea. And there is nothing else to say to one another, so she leaves first, and he waits a long time in this attic, just kind of looking around. I could still see the owl shape and the twisted grain of the wood there. There was little left here of barrack or of me. Time and other occupants had obliterated us from the room. I left it, dragging the door closed behind me. So he's just kind of glancing around, seeing where his childhood was, and then being like, there's nothing left of me here. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, this is sort of an interesting moment, too, in that it's a look into the fact that Fitz sort of disappears from everywhere he's ever been.
Yeah.
They're never like, I know we just had a whole thing about how he needed to erase his tracks from his room last chapter, and later in this chapter he has to erase his tracks from the cabin.
It is an echo of the second half of this chapter too.
Yeah, of like, yes, there's little things that he is aware of, but anyone else looking in would never know that he was there. And it's kind of sad. There's no marks on the door frame that say Fitz, age 5, this height, you know?
So there's this time when he's down in the stable and he's like, well, I could saddle my black, go down to Buckkeep Town because I have to see Jenna. But I think it's way easier to see if you're being followed and to lose tails if you're walking. So I'm just going to walk down to Buckkeep Town. And he does, but multiple times on the trip down, he stops, pulls off to the side of the road, waits in the forest for a long time until his back starts to ache, making sure no one else is following him, gets back on the road and walks a little bit more and does it again.
He's not really even going to the forest. He's just standing in the scrub next to the road.
Right, yeah.
Which, not crouching, not hiding. He's just standing in the scrub, which in my mind means that he's stepping off the road and then turning around and looking around, which is pretty obvious that you're looking for a tail, in my opinion, but maybe I'm just
Scrub
not
brush
imagining.
can be pretty tall.
It can be. I just don't know if I'm like imagining the exact right scenario that's happening.
He performs the same maneuver twice more on his walk into town, so 3 times he pulls over, and he takes a roundabout path through Buckkeep Town to Jenna's house. Part of this was caution, but part of it was dithering. I wanted to take her a gift, both as an apology for not visiting last night, as I had said I would, and as thanks for helping me with Hap. Yet I could not think what it should be. Before we get into the gift, I wanted to speak about him not having a tail here. And I think later on in the chapter, he mentions that it's weird that they approached him and then there's nothing since,
Yes.
even if he's been alone. And that's what I was kind of hinting at before when we were talking about Lodwine and the Piebalds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when they're passing along the messages of Fix spying, I feel like Lodwine's like, I'm going to come there myself.
Okay.
And that's why there's like a pause on a lot of things.
Because they're waiting for the leader to do whatever he wants.
Exactly. So, anyways, he's looking for a gift and he doesn't know what to get. He's like, earrings somehow seemed too personal and too permanent, and so did the brightly woven scarf that caught my eye. Fresh smoked redfish teased my appetite, yet seemed inappropriate. I was a man grown, yet I felt caught in a boy's dilemma. How did I express thanks, apology, and interest in her without appearing too grateful, apologetic, or interested? I decided, a friendly gift, and resolved that I would choose something that I could as easily present to the fool or hap without feeling any awkwardness. I settled on a sack of sweet have-nuts, this year's plump and shining harvest, and a loaf of fresh spice bread. With these in hand, I felt almost confident as I tapped at the door with the palm reader's sign on it. And Jenna says a moment, opens up the door, and is like, "Oh, Tom, can you wait here? I got customers." And Fitz is like, "Yeah," and she slams the door shut and goes back in.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also, we should mention, freezing cold out.
Yeah.
It's about to snow, probably. Fitz can feel it. But so he's standing out in the cold, and he's sort of wondering if this is punishment for not coming the night before, and maybe he should leave. But he does sort of mention the things that are around that he notices around Jenna's shop, which is fun.
Yeah, we get a little bit of an area description here where there is, it's a quiet street, yet there's a steady trickle of folk along it. She lives next door to a potter, and across the street there was a woman who had way too many children.
Yes, it seemed to have an impossible number of children.
Yes. And from down the street where he stood, he could see a doors to a tavern. It was a pig wedged in a fence on the sign. And the trade seemed to be mostly the sort of who took their beer home in small buckets. So it's like a neighborhood thing where you get crowlers or growlers from. And
I guess, yeah. Odd to think about somebody taking a bucket of beer. I fear that could not be good, but I don't know.
How else are you going to store them, you know?
Not in a bucket.
Glass is lavishly expensive. They don't even have glass in windows.
That's true, but also, like, surely they have better than a bucket to carry beer in. Like, that's an open container. Crazy. Where are the open container laws? I'm talking to Kettrick.
I was just beginning to think of either leaving or tapping on the door again when it opened, and a family comes out, lavishly garbed matron and her 2 daughters. The younger girl had tears in her eyes, but her sister looked bored. The mother thanked Jenna profusely for a very long time before she tartly ordered her girls to stop tarrying and come along. The glance she gave me as she led them off did not approve of me. So before Jenna welcomes him in, I think we'll take a break right there and end this episode. This chapter, is like 30 pages long or something. And we got another 20 left, and we're about an hour in. So
yeah,
we'll get back to that second half of this chapter in the next episode. Yeah. But I guess we'll leave you off with Fitz was worried that he wasn't welcome, but Jenna gives him a nice welcome and a smile. She was just busy. If you have thoughts on this part of the chapter, please let us know. It is fitzhappy@gmail.com, or you can message us on any of our social medias at isfitzhappy. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, Reddit, any of those. Reach out to us.
We like hearing from you. Okay, it's time for the best part. We're going to talk about what you guys have brought to our attention.
Before we dive in, as always, a shout out and a big thank you to Degenhart, Neva, and Anna for supporting us on Ko-fi, and a big shout out to Zakita as well for supporting us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Starting off easy with some reader comments, we're going to start with a email sent to us by Jess about the most recent chapter. Shared Sorrows. And that is Jess's favorite chapter, and it makes them cry every time.
Yeah, one of their favorite ones in the whole series. It is a beautiful chapter. It's really, really nice.
Yeah. I think it is a nice cathartic scene, right? It's the first time we actually get to see Fitz mourn Night Eyes.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's been very pent up even for us as the reader. So it is sort of a release for us as well that he's finally acknowledging the sadness, not just sort of skirting around the pain.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Jess. We also had a few comments on our our Facebook post about that same episode, which is episode 291, by the way. First from Ellen, who says that they love our discussion at the end of the chapter where we put into words how Robin Hobb works on her characters. I've said for years that the depth and kind of congruence of the characters is what sets her work apart from all the others, and why it is sometimes feels a bit flat to read something else.
Yeah. And that is a common thing that is said about Robin Hobb's works, is that her character work is among the best. There are other authors out there that are great at it, but going from one, like a Robin Hobb book or one of those other great books, to something else that just doesn't quite reach that same level, they do feel flat.
Yeah.
I agree with you. You just kind of have to get back in a mindset of like, oh, this is regular book, you know?
This is not a Hobb work.
Yep.
So, yeah, good point.
We also had a comment from, please correct us if I pronounce this wrong, but Thalia as well. Maybe Thalia?
Talia?
Maybe Talia, yeah. Or Talia.
I only say Talia because I knew somebody who spelled their name this way who went by Talia. But
Okay.
it could just be that they pronounced it differently.
Yeah. Also on Facebook, they commented about how we should just rename this chapter to Healing Kisses. But they're also a longtime Fitz and Kettrikin shipper, and also because they trust Night Eyes' judgment completely, they obviously should be together. So they really enjoyed hearing this relationship discussed, as we did in this past chapter and episode.
Yes. Which I will say, I am not typically a Kettrikin Fitz shipper. I don't know. I see it. I understand why it would be good, and I wouldn't be mad if that was what happened. I do still sort of like Molly and Fitz together, at least in the first trilogy. We'll see at the end of this how I feel.
But they posted a link, if you want to go to our Facebook page in this comment on episode 291. They posted a link to a Google document where they kind of compiled a bunch of scenes that Fitz and Kettrikin have together in these books, and said they wanted to kind of see what it read like of just their relationship if you take out all the other context. And it's like a slow burn of very platonic at first adoration and love, but there's something there.
Yeah, and it's just sort of one of those where they weren't at the right place at the right time. They just missed each other. There's too much holding them back.
Lovingly, platonically, slow burn romantically, with a heavy dose of crush and admiration and care. Devastatingly out of reach of one another in this particular cycle of time. And then also they want to discuss something else, and that's the epigraph and how it relates to what Fitz was going through in our discussion, and yours in particular, Emma, about Fitz and Kettrikin being in each other's spots at the table, and Fitz coming in as a farseer and then relinquishing that rule back to Kettrikin.
Right.
When he was kind of demanding reports out of her.
Yes. And the epilogue is called The King's Returned.
The epigraph.
The epigraph, sorry, is The King Returned. That's the name of the poem, I believe. And so putting that context also into that scene where Fitz and Kettrikin are sort of talking and discussing what has happened while Fitz has been away and the choices Kettrikin has been making, that there's a lot of layers to this. And the first one being Fitz is the, quote, true king, both technically and by blood. 2, Kettrikin perhaps is seeing him as the true king if he only chose to take on the role. 3, Fitz breaking through the dam of his grief and finding himself in life after Night Eyes, which is another return. 4, To Emma's point of distinguishing the seating arrangement and emphasizing who uses what and what belongs to who, one can easily see what amazing monarchs they could be together, both inherently carrying out the roles of sacrifice in their various ways and putting their kingdom above all. No wonder Dutiful was named as he was.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, there are a lot of really deep layers to the king returning.
Yeah, I really like that interpretation as well.
Yeah.
That's good. Because we just talked about kind of the surface of they're sharing Verity as one of the sorrows, and we kind of talked about that a little bit, but this reads into it a bit more, which I like.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Thalia or Talia or Thalia.
Yes.
So sorry. And then finally, we had an Instagram comment from Peculiar Ponies who wrote in to say that they think it's beautiful Fitz finds the shared grief with Ketcherkin that he was previously searching for in his conversation with Hap. I do agree Fitz and Ketcherkin could be good for each other, but I also can see their relationship with Verity and their different places in society making it a no-go for both of them.
Yeah, definitely. There's kind of a both sides to that for sure in my mind. I kind of wish I'm kind of on the side of like Fitz and Ketcherkin would have been great together. Don't mind Fitz and Molly. In fact, I like Molly as a character. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's definitely that barrier in between that they could never get over. At least Fitz could never get over, for sure.
I think Fitz would have to be a completely different person to have taken Ketcherkin up on her offer to be in a relationship. Although she doesn't really offer, it's just sort of a subtle vibe. But I think if Fitz was the type of person who would have taken her up on it, they wouldn't get along as much and it wouldn't be a very good relationship. So
yeah.
I think the way that their relationship plays out feels very much the way I've heard people talk about the way Shakespeare writes plays, where like the protagonist is like has a weakness for the type of play he's in, and how like Hamlet would have been great in a different Shakespeare play like Romeo and Juliet,
sure, yeah.
But he wasn't. He was put in his own tragedy. And that's sort of the way I picture the way Fitz goes about this world, that like in a different book, Fitz is going to be a great main lead. He's going to be happy. He's going to get everything he needs. But unfortunately, he's not in that book. He's in this one. And so we don't get to see him get together with Ketcherkin. And so, yeah, I don't know.
And last but not least,
we have a couple comments from Degenhart on Blue Sky. One which we missed last time. This is for episode 290.
We think we missed.
Sometimes it's hard.
We both read it not while we were recording. So I thought we talked about it, but maybe we didn't. I don't know.
I think this might be the first time this has actually happened. So good on us for 200 something, 90 episodes in and the first time. But sorry, Degenhart. But yes, so Degenhart said about 290, concerning Fitz not clocking anything related to queerness. I think he grew up in a very heteronormative world, the noblesse being even more so than simple folks, because having an heir is so important to them, and thus doesn't recognize queerness even if it jumps him right in the face.
Including his own love for Beloved.
Yes. And I think that's a really interesting topic to bring up, once again, about Fitz's whole not quite clocking what's going on with Beloved and sort of the underlying feelings there. Although or
even right in front of his face with that noble who was bumping him.
Yes, thank you. But I think it does go back to Fitz couldn't even catch the drift that Ketcherkin was sending his way when she kissed him. So I don't know. I feel like it's potentially a Fitz problem, but I think it is exacerbated when it comes to the queer lens because it is so far away from what Fitz is expecting. And I think it isn't something. I think you're right. I think there's something about him being a noble and the heir problem being big and him not really ever talking about it, or probably knowing anyone who is openly gay.
Right. And I think we had somebody else comment about this as well. But yeah, I think our views align across this whole thing that just Fitz grew up in such a black and white world where it just wasn't a thing.
And I think really interestingly that when Fitz is confronted with the fact that Beloved is gay, or that man is gay that is bumping up on him, it's never like upset at the idea that gay people exist. It's upset at the idea that they're coming on to him.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's just like, what about me makes you think that I'm interested? Which is like, in and of itself, it's probably its own thing that he needs to work on. But I think it's really interesting that at no point is it framed as though he thinks that that is like vile just because it is.
Right.
He just personally doesn't want to do that. And so it's like gross for that reason. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a very important distinction to make. And I think it is important to talk about that aspect as well, that it's not being framed as though the people are wrong for believing that. He just doesn't want them to think that way towards him.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, like, what does that look like? Why is that? And it is interesting because I think we have talked about on this podcast a lot about how there is sort of a queerness to the relationship Fitz has with Beloved in a lot of ways that can be read that way. Although we have gotten 100%. People who have written in who have said they didn't read it that way and that they have similar friendships that are completely platonic, that are not queer. I think it just is interesting how we bring the different lenses in and read it, and how that interacts with a person who doesn't have a touch point, like this character who doesn't have a touch point of what being gay means and what that is like, and an example of gay people in front of him to be like, oh, okay, that's an option. Yeah. And so that is also kind of an interesting aspect about Fitz and his journey, I think, in my mind. So thank you for pointing that out.
Degenhart also says on that episode that we should definitely read The Neverending Story. It's a great book. It's best in the original German. Yeah. Thank you so much for the smiley face at the end of that. I will not be reading it in German. Not because I wouldn't want to. I just cannot. So.
Yes. You know, maybe I'll try to learn German just for that.
Yeah, maybe. Degenhart also commented on 291, the most recent episode as well, saying, I didn't catch that Che betrayed Fitz's name to Thick. Interesting. Got to keep an eye out for that plot line. Which is something that I mentioned at the beginning too, when somebody else chimed in like, hey, remember Thick is the spy for the Piebalds.
Yeah.
And that was a really good reminder for me too, of just like, oh, okay, gotta keep on top of everything that's happening.
You really have to be Chade when reading this book,
right?
In the way that we're doing it,
that spider.
There are a lot of webs being tugged on, and you got to be able to interpret each tug. And I gotta say, I am not very good at being Chade 90% of the time. So I'm glad that you all are part of our web to be able to pull a little bit harder on strings that we miss.
And Degenhart also says, Kettrikin grieving Night Eyes made me cry all over again. Best of pups. I would die for my queen. Kind of echoing Jess there too, yes. That it is a very sad, but it's also a very cathartic chapter. So thank you very much.
It did make me tear up when I was reading it on my own. I think I did okay when we were reading. But yeah, it is really sad. And I love how much people love Kettrikin. It is very nice.
Yeah.
So thank you, Degenhart. Thank you to everyone who wrote in. We always love hearing from you guys, and I love hearing all the different perspectives and reasons why you love Kettrikin. So thank you very much. See you next week.